In the winter of 1951, the war showed no sign of ending. Snow fell heavily across the southern refugee camps, covering broken carts, worn tents, and the frozen ground beneath them. Thousands of people gathered there, waiting for news that rarely came. Some waited for sons or husbands who had gone north and never returned. Others waited for permission to move again, though none of them knew where they would go next. Most waited simply because there was nowhere else left to go. The cold settled into everything. It crept into clothing, into bones, and into silence. After a while, no one complained about it anymore. Complaining required energy, and energy had become precious. Han Ji-ho spent his days inside a small tent near the camp entrance. The tent smelled of paper, ink, and damp fabric. His job was to record the names of the missing. Refugees came to him carrying scraps of paper, faded photographs, or sometimes nothing at all. They spoke names carefully, as though speaking too loudly might erase them forever. Ji-ho wrote each name neatly into a ledger. He believed that careful handwriting mattered. If a name was written clearly enough, perhaps it could still belong to someone alive. When he finished a page, he paused before turning it, allowing himself a moment to hope that one day the names would be crossed out, not because they were forgotten, but because they were found. Nearby, Seo Min-jae worked as an interpreter. He moved between medical tents and supply lines, translating instructions from foreign doctors into gentle, understandable words. He explained pain, loss, and uncertainty in ways that people could bear to hear. He spoke calmly, even when those around him cried or shouted, and when there was nothing left to be done, he stayed anyway. Ji-ho first noticed Min-jae because he did not rush. While others hurried through their tasks, eager to escape the cold, Min-jae lingered with each person. He waited until they understood. Min-jae, in turn, noticed Ji-ho because he never looked away from his work. Even when names blurred together and hands trembled from cold, Ji-ho continued writing, steady and focused. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the hills, they found themselves sitting on the same wooden bench near a small fire. The camp was full of voices, children crying, adults arguing, soldiers shouting orders, but neither of them spoke. Silence felt safer, in a place where every word could carry grief. Quiet became a kind of shelter. When food was distributed, there was not enough for everyone. Ji-ho quietly split his portion of rice and handed half to Min-jae. Min-jae hesitated, then accepted it with a small nod. Their hands came close enough to feel warmth, but neither allowed them to touch. Some boundaries were understood without being explained. Later that night, as the camp grew quieter, Min-jae asked Ji-ho where he was from. Ji-ho answered briefly, naming a place that no longer felt real. Min-jae shared his own answer just as simply. They did not ask follow-up questions. The past was heavy, and neither of them wished to add to the weight. At something Ji-ho said, something small and unimportant, Min-jae laughed. The sound was quick, surprised, as if it had escaped before he could stop it. Ji-ho looked at him, startled, and then realized he was smiling too. It felt strange, almost unfamiliar, to smile without effort. That night, Ji-ho lay awake inside his tent, listening to the wind press against the canvas. He found himself thinking about Min-jae, not as another refugee, but as someone whose presence made the world feel less unbearable. The realization unsettled him. The war had taught him to be careful with hope. The sound of distant explosions reminded him why. Whatever he felt, the war allowed no space for it. Survival came first. Everything else had to wait. The next morning, Min-jae looked at Ji-ho differently, not with expectation, and not with questions, but with understanding. He did not push for closeness. He did not speak of what had passed between them. He simply stayed nearby, as if that alone was enough. That winter, neither of them spoke of what was forming between them. There were no confessions, no promises, and no names given to the feeling that quietly took shape, but something had begun. carefully and cautiously, in a place where silence often survived longer than people did, and for the first time in a long while, the cold did not feel quite as endless.
Subscribe and turn on notification for more.